Good afternoon, everyone. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. I am Troy Otradovic, hopefully to be joined soon by my co-host Evan Watallison. I know that he was caught up having to do some things with work, and so I will start the show, and I see Evan calling in right now, so it's perfect timing. What's up, buddy?
Not much. Just you know how work can get in the way every now and then. So
well, you can blame.
Didn't get out of getting out when I wanted to. So
well, you can blame it on me. I'm the one that had to move the time up to 5 because I have work at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So blame it on me.
Normally Tuesdays I can get out of here a little bit early, but my supervisor, who normally has a meeting right at 3:30, didn't have her meeting today, so we couldn't sneak out of here.
So you didn't get to play the little sneak out the back door routine today. Had to go out the front door today. Well, take a deep breath.
So.
Take a deep breath, bud. We got you on. I mean, you and I have prepared for this show. We knew what we were going to talk about. It's a great article. I had it on Facebook today. I know you retweeted it. I put the article out on Twitter. It's a great article by Bob McGinn. And I'll tell you what, McGinn, the things that he said in there, you and I have talked about some of these things over and over through the course of the season, but it was nice to go through and read it. I know at the end of his article, he actually graded all the offense, the defense, and you and I are going to get into our special series on that a little bit later as we discuss how to put that together. So really, I'm gonna let you take it away. And I know that the article itself is Packers getting left behind by NFL elite, and we have tweeted out, we have put it on Facebook, the link to the article. Any of our listeners, I recommend you go read it. It's very informative, especially all of the grading with stats and such. But the gist of it, Evan, is that the Packers are staying put as we watch other teams add pieces to compete year in and year out for championships. And we just think that with our talent that we have, that we're just going to be able to roll into the Super Bowl. And it hasn't been that way. We're getting to the playoffs, but we're not winning. Ever since the Super Bowl. Haven't won.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you take it away. And what are your thoughts on the overall article itself?
Well, basically, you kind of talk about it a little bit. McGinn's talking about how Carolina, San Francisco, and Seattle are pretty much leaving the Packers behind as they're, winning, not only winning divisions, but winning in the playoffs. And the last playoff win the Packers had was against the Joe Webb-led Minnesota Viking team. And he's talking how the Packers pretty much back to the playoffs this year because Detroit fell on their face, Chicago fell on their face, and the Vikings blundered big time a couple of years back when they drafted Christian Ponder in the first round when they're desperately trying to find a franchise quarterback. Now, there are some elements to the article that I don't necessarily disagree with, but there is a few things that he had left out. Now, I'll start with, what I agree with is talking about the defense. Since 2009, it talked about in the article, and we talked about it Saturday. Since 2009, Thompson has pretty much failed to restock the defense of talent. They've lost Nick Collins, they've lost Cullen Jenkins, and in replace, we've gotten McMillan, MD Jennings, and some undersized guys who are young. And it's a pretty proven point that Capers' defense needs more veteran guys to do it. So at that point, I kind of agree with Thompson. As much as I still support him, he's really dropped the ball recently to restock that defense. And they also, not having really any leadership on that defense. So I do agree with that one. But one point that he did not bring up in the article, and I really, wish he would have, because it's a point that needs to be taken into consideration. When you look at teams like San Francisco, Seattle, Carolina, what do they all have in common? They all have a quarterback who is still on their rookie contract. Their quarterback is not making a ton of money. Kaepernick and Wilson, I don't believe, are making even $1 million a year. Cam Newton's still on his first rookie contract. When, Rodgers just signed a big contract, and, you look at those teams, they're able to afford other pieces on that team because they don't have to pay their quarterback yet. When they have to start paying their quarterback, you're going to see them start fading back into the pack and basically struggle to sign free agents because they're not going to have the cap flexibility to do it, which they're allowed to have right now. So that's the big piece of the article that Bob McGinn didn't mention in there, and I really wish he would have. And if it wasn't for, a ton of injuries that they've had as well since 2009 is really when the rash of injuries started, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers would have had at least another Super Bowl appearance between 2010 and now. Because 2011, if Nick Collins doesn't get hurt, that defense is totally different. So just a couple points that I kind of disagree with and which you would have pointed out.
Yeah, and the cap room is the one thing, and I think the Packers do a good job of maintaining that cap. And is that part of the reason we don't go out and sign free agents? I mean, we've given Rodgers the big deal. We've just given Matthews the big deal. We gave Morgan Burnett the big deal. And so I know he put in there, he made a point about the Burnett deal and him not playing up to par, so to speak, for that big contract. But I had never thought of that, so I think you brought up a good point. What's going to happen when the 49ers do have to give Kaepernick the $120 million and give the Russell Wilson the $120 million? Will they be able to go out? Because we know that Seattle went on and just had a frenzy this offseason to be able to get some of those players. But they also pulled off the Harvin trade. So the one thing that I look at this article, Evan, is I do think, though, and it's going to go back to our rant, is we've got to look at being maybe a little bit more aggressive in the free agent market. And I know we have holes to fill. And if Ted Thompson thinks he can fill it in the draft, so be it. But you and I have talked about this. It's the leadership component that we're missing. And I think he has to be aggressive in the offseason to do that. And I don't think you can get that leadership in the draft. You and I talked about not being able to develop it in-house. We haven't seen it this year. Nobody stepped up.
No.
But the one thing, and from his reporting, the thing that gets to me is that it looks like, though, from the Packers organization, and I will quote right from the article, and it says, from the sound of things, the Packers, aside from a tweak here and a tweak there, plan to keep on operating the way they always have under Ted Thompson, Mike McCarthy, and Aaron Rodgers. So, as a fan, I look at that and say, what then is going to change? How is this team going to get better next year? Do we have to put all of our faith in the draft? Because if they're not going to change much, that's about all that's going to happen. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and what I want to know is what do they mean by a little tweak here, a little tweak there? I'll be curious to see what they mean by that. Because what if that little tweak here, little tweak there is going out and signing a couple guys to fill some holes and to get some veteran presence on the team? Because if that's the case, then great. Because he signed up a couple guys, he is looking at trying to improve the roster a little bit, but he's not changing his way. If that's what they mean, great. Because that could be what a little tweak there, a little tweak here might mean.
Yeah,
and until we see what happens, we don't really know what that even means.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. We're not in the mind of Ted Thompson. And like you, I support Ted Thompson.
No.
I support Ted Thompson. I just think, my thing with Ted Thompson is what really caught me with this article is, there's a lot of facts in here, a lot of factual things. And when I look at it, it just goes to where my thought is. I'd like to see a little more aggressiveness. Maybe a trade here if we can afford a trade. Maybe that A- free agent, maybe okay. Like you had mentioned it earlier, overpaying a little bit for a Charles Woodson, even though not a lot of teams wanted him. But I think we need to have something like that. And when he goes back to that, I think that can be all that tweak is, like you're saying. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they plan to go get one of those not over the cap, break the bank free agent, but maybe one of those guys that is asking too much on the downside of his career, but could be a good leader. We don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. And, the one thing in here, when I was reading through all of this, is, a lot of it is talking about the defense and how they've ranked at the end of it. The last 4 years, Packers ranked 28th, 26th, 26th, 29th in yards allowed per rush. But when I look at it, you and I talked about it. We just don't have the personnel. We don't have the personnel for the 3-4.
No.
And when you're looking at those 4 years, we recapped it on Saturday. That's when about we lost all of our good players. Free agency, injuries, so on and so forth. But, as you look to the future, Evan, and you read the article, what is your feeling as we look at the Packers moving forward? From this article and Ted Thompson and moving forward, what are your ultimate thoughts on that?
Well, I guess the first comment I'll make is one thing I've learned to do, and Bob McGinn is good at his craft. He is. He's good at his craft, and he's good at getting facts, good at getting sources. But Bob McGinn is also the same guy that came out with an article the Sunday before the Packers played the Bears, saying that if Rodgers were to go down that week, that they could finish the year 11-5 because they had the personnel, they had the depth to do it. Well, now in this article, he's talking basically about how they don't have the personnel, they don't have the depth. Now, that's why I got to say I take what he says with a grain of salt, because this is exactly what he's wanting people to do. He wants, he's a renowned journalist for a reason. He's a award-winning journalist for a reason. He gets people talking about his work, and he gets people talking about his work by writing articles about, first of all, how the Packers could go 11-5 if Aaron Rodgers got hurt with the personnel that they have, and then he writes another article saying how Packers are no longer an NFL elite team and they're being left in the past. That's how he wins the award, because now people are going to talk about that, because the Packers fan base is very passionate. I'm a very passionate Packer fan. I know you are, and all of our listeners are loyal Packer fans as well. I've been on Twitter during the Packer game, seeing people's comments on there, and some of the stuff they say I cannot repeat on the air. Even if we weren't trying to keep it a G show, I couldn't repeat on the air what they're saying. So that's the first comment I want to make.
That's why
where do the Packers go from here?
I was going to say that's why I stay off Twitter during Packer games, because one is I am passionate when I watch, and the second is, when I read Twitter with some fans watching the game, I'm like, just watch the game. There's no need for this stuff, because I go back and I'll go down my timeline. I'm like, man, that's just not needed during the game. That's why I stay off social media when I'm watching the game. I just want to watch the game. But go ahead with your point, bud.
I'll tend to live tweet every now and then during the game. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I'll be on there, especially if I see that a player, goes down hurt. I follow a lot of the guys that are up there in the press box, and they announce it to the press box guys first if the player is going to return or not. So I usually jump on their accounts really quick to see what they're tweeting out. Guys like Tyler Dunn or Rob, who we had on, or Chuck Freeman. I'll check their timelines right away and see what they're tweeting out regarding, let's say Aaron Rodgers' collarbone injury. But, I don't tend to live tweet as much as I used to. Now, where do I see the Packers going from here? I don't see Ted Thompson breaking the bank this offseason. Because if you look at who's coming up in free agency, they have to extend Randall Cobb. You have Jordy Nelson, who's contract expiring, the huge discount that we just got him for. He's going to have to get a new contract. They have those are two big decisions the Packers are going to have to make, and that's one reason why I don't feel James Jones is going to be back in Green Bay next year, because they got to pay Nelson, they got to pay Cobb. But what I would like to see the Packers do is maybe bring back a Charles Woodson, or bring in a safety who could contribute immediately and contribute some value to the defense, because I don't see a rookie safety coming in and being able to learn Capers' defense immediately and being able to contribute. So that's one thing I would like to see. And they also have to restock the defensive line, which I don't know if they can do all that in the draft either. The draft is pretty deep on the D-line, but we'll see if they're able to do that.
Well, it's a catch-22, isn't it, Evan? We've got to restock our defense, and what do we want to do? We're going to build through the draft and play all young guys, and then are we going to put up with the mistakes? Because you and I both know that a rookie coming in, the level of play to be able to insert that many rookies into a defense could be disastrous at times. I mean, it's almost we hope not, but it very well could be, and so it'll be interesting to see how they want to go about. And I'm going to go back, and we're going to look at where do we need the key players. And it was the Dom Capers. It was he needs a nose tackle, right? Well, I honestly, I am not sure if the Packers are going to re-sign B.J. Raji. I don't know if they're going to do that. We don't know the health of Johnny Jolly, and so are we going to be able to get an impact nose tackle in the draft? So a lot of these things have to happen and fall into place. And again, maybe that's where the tweak here and the tweak there are. But we definitely know we need safety help. And like you said, and they were even mentioning it, and I brought it up, and you brought it up in the recap yesterday, that the teams, all these teams that are winning in the playoffs had great safety play. Could you get it from a rookie? You could, but at that level and how important the safety position is, highly unlikely that a rookie's going to step in.
At the safeties too. I don't mean to cut you off there, but these safeties that we're talking about, look at where they were drafted. Whitner, Reed, Chancellor, Earl Thomas. They were all drafted top 15 in the draft. And when's the last time the Packers drafted top 15? It's been a while. I think it was might have been the first year without Favre was the last time they drafted top 15. So it's been a while since the Packers have been drafted that high in the draft. And in order for a safety, in order for a rookie, a safety in particular, to come in and make a huge impact, what we're looking for, it's got to be a special player. And if it's a player that special, I don't see how they're around when the Packers draft 21st. But maybe they'll get lucky, and somebody will fall there.
Well, maybe they'll get lucky, or, I know it's not the Packers' MO, but maybe they'll trade up. If they feel that the guy can be an impact player. I do think, though, in our first round this year, it has to be a win. I think our first round draft pick this year has to be a win to fill a hole and make an impact. Because, I agree. It can't be a project. We have enough projects right now. And so we need an impact guy in the first round. And I know we're drafting 21st, but you know what? You and I have put it into this. We talked about tanking it for a higher draft pick. You never know. It comes down to the evaluation. It comes down to the scouting department. We just cannot miss on our number one pick. Our number one pick has to come in and has to start and has to be an impact player. That's where I think the Packers have to do well this year, including something in free agency. Like you said, you had mentioned Charles Woodson. Does he have anything left in the tank? He had an okay year. I don't know if he'd ever want to return to Green Bay. He would bring the leadership. I'm not sure how that.
Yeah, well, he didn't sound like he left on bad terms.
No, it didn't sound like it. It sounded like he understood it was a business decision. But we'll see what happens. But it's somebody like that. That's what I'm talking about. That leadership. Somebody that can come in, provide that spark, that person that can calm things down when things aren't going well. We've talked about momentum shifts in games. The veterans know how to handle those things, and they're able to calm that team down. And I think that was our problem. You look at that when we lost the momentum shift and it was against us, it was hard for our defense to get it back. And at the end of the year, we did better. But we need to have that leader there. So, Another thing you've been talking about it all year too is our inside linebacker play. There's another position we've got to beef up on. So we've got a lot of things to take care of. And then, like you said, on the offensive side, we have all of these contracts. We're not going to be able to pay all our receivers. There's no way. You're not going to be able to pay Jones, Nelson, and Cobb. I like the development of Boykin. I think that's a good little development right there. So I think you're absolutely right. I think James Jones is the odd man out. I can't see Jordy Nelson being the odd man out. Not the relationship him and Rodgers have. So, I think Jones is a very good receiver, but I think it's going to be a casualty of the salary cap because they're not letting Cobb go.
Yeah.
So, as we look at those things, like you said, I like the article for a lot of the factual stuff. It was a really good article with a lot of facts. But also, too, when I look at, he had listed all of the free agents that these other teams were signing, we couldn't afford them. We just couldn't afford to even get in a bidding war with half of those players.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, and I think
it does.
And that
looking at over the list, really the one guy on there that I think we probably could have afforded would be Glenn Dorsey, but we didn't need defensive help at the time because Carlos Dansby would demand a lot of money, and a lot of the other guys would as well. And, or they didn't fit the scheme the Packers were running. So I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, that's fine. And it goes back to your point about you got to be able to have the salary cap room. And to be honest, when you look at some of the players we have, I've always thought the Packers did really well handling the salary cap. I've never had an issue with the Packers. They're usually pretty good, and part of that philosophy might be Ted Thompson not breaking the bank in free agency. We have made some bad signings. I mean, we can go down the list of bad signings that have happened, but every team has those. But overall, I don't have a problem with the way the Packers have handled the salary cap. But I think we're both in agreement that something has to change this offseason, and they've got to get it right. We can't stay put and just hope the draft is what's going to happen. And I'm going to add my 2 cents worth, and I had mentioned it before. When we won the Super Bowl, we lost our free agents, retirement, players moving on, free agency, so on and so forth. Then some injuries. I think since then, and you can correct me if you think I'm off in left field, but I had mentioned it earlier, I think our drafts have been more of projects than impact players. I remember a time when the Packers can get a steal in the 3rd and 4th round, and it's like, wow, where did he come from? The James Starks. And there's another one. We may lose James Starks. That might be something to look at. But I'm looking back at the drafts, and we've went over it. We've kind of exhausted it. I just look at the picks we've made, and you see some minor developments, and you see this guy's a project, and this guy's got to fit into the scheme. And so I'm thinking we've just got to get this right this year. We've got to scout these guys, and we've got to get guys that can come in and help immediately. And I don't know if that's getting Capers more involved, and I'm sure he's involved. I mean, I'm sure he's not left out in the dark evaluating players. But maybe, when you're going through, hey, I need this, I need it, and this is how I want to do it, we don't know what goes on behind the closed doors. So that's about all I have to say. Anything else on the article, Bud? We have about 6 minutes left, and there is other NFL news we can talk about.
Yeah, that's about all I have to say on it. And now in regards to the other NFL news, now there was one coaching signing yesterday that I was quite pleased with, as I'm sure you were as well, with Whisenhunt going to the Tennessee Titans rather than the Detroit Lions. So that made me quite the happy person because I did not want to see him in Detroit. And the Lions today ended up signing Jim Caldwell to be their head football coach.
Yes. You didn't see my tweet yesterday when that came out? I retweeted it.
No, I must have missed it.
I quoted the tweet, and I think it was from ESPN. I retweeted it, and I quoted it, and I said, "Thank the Lord." when it was announced that Ken Whisenhunt went to Tennessee. And I'll tell you, this morning, driving in on Pittsburgh radio, the sports hosts in Pittsburgh are scratching their head as to why Ken Whisenhunt went to Tennessee and not Detroit. And so I think that's the major question. Why did he pick Tennessee over a team in Detroit that was pretty well set to make a playoff run with the right coach? And you and I both agreed. We would have been scared if Whisenhunt would have went there. I'm going back, and when
I think part of...
Oh, go ahead. I want to listen to what you say, because I think I know where you're going with that, because I thought of you immediately when they brought the question up this morning. So go ahead. Finish your point.
Well, I was going to say there's really 2 points that I'm seeing on the possibility and why he might have chose Tennessee over Detroit. The first one being, what kind of control is he even going to have as the head coach in regards to player personnel? Because from what I had heard, the GM and Jim Schwartz butted heads quite frequently on player personnel. So I'm wondering if Whisenhunt was a little concerned on that aspect. And then also, what exactly could he even get out of Matthew Stafford for some comments he's made in the offseason? So that was really what I was going to say.
And that's the bingo question, Evan. Bingo! That's exactly what I thought of this morning. I'm like, you know what? Evan had mentioned the Stafford comments. And Ken Whisenhunt probably didn't want to have to deal with that immaturity. Now, can Jim Caldwell do anything with Matthew Stafford? I mean, I've read the stuff, and we know Jim Caldwell, the work that he did, and he went into Baltimore and the Indianapolis Colts. But I'm looking at it from this standpoint. I'm okay with that signing, and this is why. When Peyton Manning went down in Indianapolis, what happened there? It was disaster.
It lost everything.
It was
hurt them a lot.
It was disaster. So the comments that I see about Jim Caldwell, and I'm not taking anything away from Jim Caldwell. Great. He gets a shot. He's been to the game. He's brought people to the Super Bowl. Can work with offenses, but you have to have a quarterback that's willing to work with you. And as much as I give Joe Flacco slack for not being an elite quarterback and getting overpaid and all of those things, he took to Jim Caldwell. He took to the system. He worked within Jim Caldwell's system when they made that Super Bowl run. He wasn't asked to do anything amazing, and that's what he was getting out of those quarterbacks. Now he has Matthew Stafford, and I call him kind of a loose cannon. He even said he didn't want a personal quarterbacks coach, and that's what they're making Jim Caldwell to be. So when I was reading this stuff today, I was laughing, thinking of you. Not in a freaky way there, Evan. But I was thinking of the comment you made that, are they forcing Jim Caldwell on Matthew Stafford? Because if that's the case, this might not be that good. So that's what I have to say about that.
I don't like the hire at all.
Hey, I'm okay with it as a Packer fan.
As a Packer fan, I like the hire. As a football guy, I don't know what Detroit was thinking.
90 seconds.
Because Jim Caldwell benefited from the situation he walked into in Indianapolis when he became the coach.
Yes, he
and
did.
Then he also had the bad situation, what happened with Peyton Manning getting hurt. So he had both ends of the spectrum. Is he as good as a coach as the one that you saw in the year he took Indianapolis to the Super Bowl? No. Is he as bad as a coach that you saw the year
60 seconds?
No. But he is. I think he's somewhere in between. But I don't think he's a head coach material. I think he's better served as a coordinator.
He's a great coordinator. I give him props for being a coordinator. He's a great coordinator. So the one that's scaring me, and I'm watching Twitter over and over, waiting for Mike Zimmer to be named the Vikings coach. I think that would be a good hire for them. That one would scare me a little bit in Minnesota. I like Zimmer. I think he's a good fit in Minnesota. We'll see what happens there, but
he deserves it. He deserves a shot.
Yeah, and that could be a great move for Minnesota right there. So I'm watching Twitter, seeing when that's going to happen. I guess they got TV crews out there, but there's about 20 seconds left, Bud. I'm going to give you a quick call after. I want to chat with you real quick.
10
but
seconds.
But to all our viewers, thanks for listening in. Crazy Lady stayed out of our way in the studio today. Have a great day. We'll see you all tomorrow. We'll see you at the next red light.